Hey everybody, why do you do what you do? Welcome back to Great Mondays Radio. It's Josh Levine, your host. Today we are going to start to try to understand why we do the things that we do and how it can boost or hinder your organization, especially if you're someone who is uh, in charge of ops, if you're a COO or someone who is leading in that way. Today, to talk about this, is Linda Perry. She's a former federal criminal defense attorney turned leadership and executive strategist, which I think is the first time I've ever said those two titles in in one line. And she is a leader who has really thought deeply about and worked through core motivations. And so this is something that I'm really interested in psychology and the psychology of things. And so Linda is going to come help educate us on what we're doing and how we can do it better. Linda Perry, welcome to Great Mondays Radio.
Thank you so much. As I told you, I've been really excited to do this talk with you this week.
Yeah. So, let's just start with the big question, which is what the fuck? Like, what federal criminal defense attorney, and now you're a executive? Like, that is not an easy jump. So, what happened there? How did you get there, and why is that something that you keep on your title?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, you know, as a federal criminal defense attorney, I did that for 17 years. And I think you really have a study of people that entire time. You're always, people are like, well, how do you defend them? I never cared about the how do you defend people.
Mm,
I cared about what motivated people to get them in the situation that they were in.
mm,
And so I've always been curious about people. As a federal criminal defense attorney, you always had to, particularly in the federal system, find the little nuance, find and diagnose the single thing that you could use on behalf of your client. And so it was always really fun for me to just dig in through things. And so but I got tired of hanging out in prisons. I won't lie to you. It's the system's exhausting, and so I went and studied how we all function. I became a mindset coach, and I over time started to really look at business leaders and see that there was always some level that they got to, right? There was always some plateau that they hit, and generally people try to approach it from let's get better systems, improve sales, let's do our way out of things. And what I realized is that it's generally our programming that prevents us from getting to where we want to go. And so instead of just removing the blocks, I wanted to understand, how do we use people's core motivations? How do we use who they really are to actually leverage that as individuals and as a team so that we could be effective? And I think from that perspective, systems and all the things people try to implement work better.
mm.
So,
Yeah, it is um easier to focus on the tangibles, the what's and the hows. And
sure.
so that is, in my experience, uh how kind of a lot of leaders will lean on that. We'll get to that, right? And it's very distracting. It's like they pop up and it's like, oh, here, let me, like we're sales, we have to get sales up. But to your point, and the way that I think about it, it is a longer term benefit to take that time to really dig into your motivation. So let's do that and talk about
Well,
motivation. Um, will what I find compelling is that you're thinking about it both from the individual and the organizational scale. Is it better to start talking about, should we start with the individual and explore that first and then go to the organization? That's usually how I think about it. I just want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
yeah, because inevitably, whenever somebody knocks on my door, it's about an individual, right? There's either a problem child or the CEO or COO knows that they or somebody else is a bottleneck. So they're like, and I don't know what to do with this person, right? And
Yeah.
so it always starts at the individual level.
Right. So it's either pointing to themselves, I don't know what to do with this person, or I don't know what to do with this person. They're on the leadership team, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yep.
So let's start with the individual. We'll go to the larger picture. So
Cool.
talk to me. How do you think about core motivations and this question of not what or how, but why?
So, I mean, I stumbled into the actual why itself, but what it all comes down to is that we all have a set of wiring that, according to Carl Jung, we learned before the age of 10. Everything we think about the world, everything we think about ourselves, everything we think about how we communicate with others was all formed before the age of 10. Now, someone will say, oh, something horrible happened to me at 20. Yeah, and there was already a core belief. So I stumbled upon this tool that Gary Sanchez developed, and he developed this tool called the Y operating system. And he came down to the conclusion that there are 9 core motivations that we operate under. And he labeled each one of them. So he decided there was better way, there's mastery, there's contribute, and I can define some of these, but there's 9 in total. And what really fascinated me about this is, there's so many personality tests out there. You could,
Yeah.
and
Everybody loves
who
a good
are we?
personality test. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants to know who they are. This one was different because it really goes to who am I at my core? What are my strengths? But also, where am I going to get stuck? And so what's really cool to me is that getting down to this basic understanding of who you are helps you actually get out of your own way, know what kind of support you need, and actually what kind of culture you're building. Like, let's say if you're at the top, right, a CEO, COO
Hmm.
type of individual, a lot of your values and a lot of who you are and what you build and the people you gather around you are based on this core motivation. So I have a why of better way. My full operating system is why challenge trust. What that means is the challenge people are super innovators. They think out of the box. So along with better way, I'm a little out there of thinking out of the box. And in my third position, however, I have this what I deliver to people is a trusting relationship. So it anchors me into people. So whatever I'm doing, the innovation, the new ways, is for the benefit of somebody. Now, it also tells me I should not be creating anything from scratch. So I need people who are very detail oriented to support me. I should not be doing any tech. I will take anything that you give me and improve it. But I also need somebody to stop me because I will keep going, improving, and I will also pivot too much. So what it tells me is I value ideas, but I need team and culture around me that's going to foster that and also put me and anchor me. So as an individual, this kind of information is incredibly useful so you can actually function at your best.
Because otherwise, we might choose to surround ourselves with people that are more like us or
Right.
amplify our sort of impulses that are not going to support us. We'll put a link in the show notes. We'll get the link for this. I think to 9 whys,
Yeah.
the YOS, so that we can dig into it. And we don't have to spend our time now on all of them, but it is really interesting to understand that as someone, as the kind of how we are making our decisions. If so, you've just given us like, okay, I understand who I am, and I need to surround my who I need to surround myself with in order to do my best work, and probably in order for them to do their best work. So that's a really interesting team experience. One of the other uh, situations that you described is I don't know what to do with this person over here. So that was I don't know what to do with me. I'd like to know more about me. What if there's someone on your team who is not I don't know, is hindering, is you've noticed
Yeah.
is perhaps a problem? How do you think about their motivation and engaging them in this process?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So one of the things that I do is I often will do team wise, right? So I'll do an analysis and I'll see that one person that may stand out that's doesn't really align with everybody else, right?
Mm,
let's say I have a team of, Better Way and Contribute. These are a lot of like innovative, caring people. But then on the one hand, we have one individual who's Right Way. And Right Way is kind of there's the right way, there's my way. It's
Hmm.
perfect, it's rigid. They're great results people, but they're going to be driven crazy by everything. And so this person, how do you deal with them? Well, the truth is when you understand their operating system, and it's really the why, how, what, the three are really critical.
Hmm.
When you understand them, instead of trying to communicate to them the way you would like to hear it, you can start to learn how to communicate with them in the way that they'll hear it themselves. It's the platinum rule. We all think of the golden rule, treat people as you like to be treated. No, it's really communicate with people the way they need to hear it, the way they would like to be communicated to.
Mm.
So it does take some skill, if you will, but what I do is I help people understand this is your team member. This is how you will get through to them. And they are critical because in their role, perhaps, right? Like if it's a right way, you need them. And so to communicate, you may have to do X, Y, Z things. So with a right way person, for example, I do coach people to say, what is the correctness in what you're doing? Give them those extra steps. And so what happens is people start to shift and like their jobs and like their roles a lot better. It also will help that maybe you put this person in charge of things you absolutely hate, right? SOPs, things that really are important for movement in a company.
Mm.
And it's not about changing your culture to them because they've joined what is your culture, which shows that is innovation and we care about people, we care about clients first, but that there's room for them in that by respecting who they are. And I think that's what often gets missed is we think that culture has to be one united thing, but there has to just be respect for we are still different individuals and how do we
Mhm.
make it work?
So what we have to do is, or what you're in these situations is understanding the team, the whys on the team. But
Yep.
let me you just said I'm going to surround myself with people who can balance me out, who can, do
Sure.
different. But then you said, well, there's one person who's got a different why. So I'm hearing two different things because sure, there's your ops people or there's the people that are going to help you do a thing, but you're also on a team of executives or leaders. And so explain to me the difference in what you're describing where you're like, oh, this person is different, but we started by saying I want people who are different.
Okay, right. So what I'm sharing with you is a scenario that I typically walk into.
Okay.
So I typically walk into cultures that have a lot of similarities, right? That most of the people have very similar whys, or at least you can track certain things, right? And there
Hmm.
will be that one person, and it's usually what they label as, I hate to say it, as the problem child or the poor communicator or whatever it may be,
Hmm.
when that's not actually accurate. They're just wired differently.
Hmm.
Now, as you're building the team from that point, right? You talk about this is there's something that happens around 50, right? 50 employees, 50 team members. And I think it starts to show up for me. I've seen it around 40, 50. And what happens is that you've built something similar. Now, as you're growing, if you want to actually scale to the next level, you have to hire smarter. You have to think differently.
Yeah.
And this is where having an understanding of your team is really critical. Let's say you have a person in the wrong place and you aren't executing, or your goals are being missed, and the person's just not in the right role. And it may be either they're shifting a role or they're just not right. And what you need is maybe, let's say, a make sense person who's logical, who's problem solving, and that is what you fill it with. And that's really critical. So I'm often come in the hiring process and we look at somebody's why. Do they fit what you're actually asking? And this
Yeah.
is why it's critical to understand what you have already so that you can grow
Yeah.
to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really compelling to think about, right? And I immediately thought if there's like you're like, oh, this person's not performing, like would you use this exercise on to help someone with a performance improvement plan?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time, right? I mean, there have been people who've come to me and said, this person has some brilliance, right? I see it. They're great, but we're struggling.
Yeah.
And so we use it to really set different goals for them to actually, I mean, it's the Y operating system tool is a growth tool, right? What I hate is those diagnostics that say, well, you're just a better way and you're stuck that way. Absolutely not. What it tells me is where you're going to get stuck and how do you move past that? So I then
Mm.
coach them on the mindset piece of
Yeah.
how do you move past that? And so it is part of a growth performance
Yeah.
plan. And I think those are critical because I've seen it turn around just like that.
Just by understanding.
Uh-huh.
I want to step back once before we move to more organization, which we kind of are leaning into, which is what if I don't even know what's wrong, right? So the two scenarios, something's wrong with, it's like I can't get past this, right? So that requires a certain amount of self-awareness. There's also this person's an issue, and that's also a whole thing. But it's like our team, or like it's just not. Or I mean, you talk about the plateau. I think that's a fine way to kind of put a positive spin on stuck. Right? Like
Yeah.
the for the team, and it could be an executive team, or it could just be a business unit team, leadership team. What is this still the correct assessment for that? Is there some other tool? Is this the right
Yeah.
way to go about it?
So it's funny. I just created a chatbot that diagnoses where in the sort of upstream, I call it, people have problems. And I
Mm,
will always say, look, I come at it from a people perspective, but it goes further back. So it always starts at the top with, is your vision clear? People don't pay enough attention to vision, and they mix it up and call it a goal. It's not that. It's, do we know where we're going? Can we say it clearly? Is it inspirational enough? Has it been delivered? So there's a vision problem. Then there's the goal setting, accountability kind of piece around things because people set goals that are just sort of wishy-washy, to be honest. I mean, it would astound you to know how much time I actually spend on it because there's only like a 40% execution or achievement rate on goals for companies. And so how do you take it to 80%? Part of it is this people piece, but also have you set them up for success with actually being clear enough? So I spend some time diagnosing, okay, have you pulled those levers? Do you have, the SOPs? Do you have all of those things? And if it's sort of a dumpster fire, we do start all the way back with vision.
uh-huh. Got it.
And I think it's critical. And so I spend time going, where is your problem first? Because I don't want to dive in assuming automatically, okay, we just have a people problem.
Right. Well, there's also and this is what I have faced many times, which is, hey, can you help us do this thing? And then you get in, you're like, oh, actually, oh,
Right.
we need to go over here first. And that's what I kind of hear in your description there. Okay, let's talk about the scaled up version of the motivation and the organizational version of this, right? And the scaling you've already mentioned as we
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah.
How do you advise or think about or help people think about, or how should people think about the organizational why? Maybe I don't even know if that's a
Yeah.
thing.
That is a thing. I
Yeah.
mean, when like I will take a company that has a large team and I will spreadsheet it out and I'll analyze their entire Y system and say, okay, they're likely to have, execution problems. They're likely to get stuck in ideation. If they have lots of mastery, they've got a lot of people who have knowledge but don't want to pull a lever. And so I spend a lot of time and say, okay, what is the organization that you have?
Mm,
What does this look like? And it's really interesting because, you think about like value systems of organizations that they are founder led up until a certain point. And then somewhere around 40 or 50, it starts to need to be organizational. And so the key then is how do I do that? So I use the why to give me a lot of data around what does it look like for their team now and what do they need to grow? And so I think that's been really a critical piece on the organizational front. What are your strengths? What's keeping you from actually scaling? So a lot of times it might even be like what's keeping them from scaling is they have too many people who are just mired down in the details, right? Or maybe they are just really in too much in the idea land. It just tells me a lot of information when I take this whole analysis of where are you heavy and
Mm-hmm.
what kind of support do you need. And I think this is really um, key in turning it also from who are we based on what the founder thinks and who are we really?
Yeah.
And who are we to
Yeah.
grow to the next level? The one thing I will tell you is every time I tell teams who they are, there's this validation that happens. There's
Mm.
this pride that happens. And then there's this, oh, that's how I should be using that person, or that's how I should be using myself, right, to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a buy-in that happens almost when you, the same as you would tying it into the vision, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what excites me is okay, I'm like, here's what your map looks like. And so let's cut to the chase and stop focusing on, I don't know, whatever you've been focusing on to fix this problem. Let's focus on what actually needs to change.
One of the problems that I've observed, and I know you've seen it too, is running 100 miles an hour 24/7.
Mm. Hmm.
And everything that you're describing, and I've had this conversation a few times recently, is a stop and assess. And just being uh, personally very interested in improving how because I also, that's also how I help my clients, right, with culture
Right.
design.
Right.
But I don't know about you, but I only get called when there's a when we're you've hit rock bottom, when there's a crisis, because it's like, no, 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 we can just keep running, right? Like I don't, do you see the same one? Do you see the same pattern? And two, how do you get folks to stop and assess before they hit rock bottom? Or maybe it's you
Question.
just can't do it, right? It's just a human thing.
I sometimes get people before they hit rock bottom because they're curious in like the workshop, right? Oh, people
Mm.
want to know themselves. So I have this great tool that sounds like, a BuzzFeed thing, but it's not, right?
Right, right, right. Everyone loves the, yeah, check, check,
Yeah.
check, check, check.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I sometimes get them
Smart, smart,
beforehand.
smart. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but I think the stop and assess, I will get people close to burnout, right? Like we talked before we started recording, there's a critical role in the COO. And why I like to talk to the COOs is they're the stopgap, right? And they're the
Yep.
ones that see all the problems, but their desk is flooded. So what is that person's role, and are they working, actually getting to work on the things that'll take the business to the next level? I always say the junior team's job is to remove things off the plate of the person above them. So ultimately, the CEO needs to be out, doing some of the sales, the networking, all the things that'll take it to the next level. The COO needs to take on some more of those
Yeah.
original things that the CEO did, so that there can be more visioning. So what I like to do is get that person where they are reaching a bit of burnout and really start to take them back, going, okay, what's standing in your way? Let's start to look at you now, and then let's look at your team. Now let's see, how do you start to actually
Mm.
pull the levers that are going to get your managers to do what they need to do so that you have more time? Because burnout is horrible right in that level.
Yeah. It's a selfish gene, right? Like
Sure.
it's how, like you start with like, oh, so I'd like to know more about myself, right? And then it's like,
Right. Yeah.
how can you know what? Here, how can we help other people help you be a better self and be work better? And I think that's a really um it's a really insightful way. So another, just a psychological approach to motivation, which
Yeah.
brings us right back to where we started, right? So it's like, I'm motivated by me and how I can succeed better. Let me help my team and they can succeed better so I can succeed better.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I mean, the CEOs have a hard time seeing that they may be the bottleneck because their plate is so full.
Yep. Nodding my head vigorously. If you're watching
Yeah.
on YouTube, you
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it all comes back to self awareness.
Yeah.
And I think that's I don't know, there's something really compelling about how you're talking about this in a way that allows everyone to kind of see themselves in it
100%.
and
Yeah.
improve their own. I just wonder if that's how we should always be thinking about organizational change, right? No one ever comes to me and says, "Hey, can you culture my organization?" Right?
No.
It's
They
it
don't know to, I don't think.
No, that's exactly right. I wish they would, but they don't.
Right. Right.
Because it's too big. And
It's
so
too
I
big.
think what's really smart about how you're approaching it, and so this is both a sales and approach, assessment, right? Is like, tell me about you, right? Like when you're a great conversationalist if you get the other person to talk most of the time.
Right. Exactly. 100%.
Right. So
And the skill I've had is, as a trial lawyer and a coach. So I just ask questions. It's fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, then I'm going to ask one more question before we wrap this up. Where should a leader inside of the organization start if they want to? What is the first question, or where do I begin as a leader when if I want to understand my own motivations?
Are you talking in general, or are you talking about like when they're encountering my world?
I'm talking about the people who are listening right now and they are, HR, up and coming HR execs, or, leaders inside of businesses, or even consultants who want to just have more compassion for themselves and how they work.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because I think the first place I would go is we spend so much time beating ourselves up. I wish I was this kind of a leader. We look at other people and say, "Oh, I need to be like that," or the nasty voice inside our head is just on constant chatter. And I think I would just have a little bit more compassion and start there saying, what is it that really wakes me up every day and gets me excited? What is it that I know I'm good at, right? Just starting there and really looking at the team around me and going, who is around me, right? Who are these people? It's
Hmm.
really just about getting curious. It's always about getting curious because I think we assume we know. I think we really do assume we know, but it's just getting a little bit curious and asking some tough questions because most people can't answer. What do you want? What are you good at? How do you want to proceed here? They don't know the answers to those things, but it's
Hmm.
really about getting curious. And I always say, like, what are the values? Start there too, because values are really huge tells. What are your values, your own? What are the company values? What are we driven by? Those are really great curiosity questions.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, self-awareness, and how do you surround yourself with an environment and the support systems and the sometimes it's people, sometimes it could just, could be, how you've orchestrated to in order to orchestrated the way that you work in order to succeed better. And it's almost like I'm drawing this connection between what you're saying of like your job is take the take the stuff off of your boss's plate. But if you're the boss, your job is to figure out how to get all of the systems and maybe VAs or whatever off of your
yeah,
plate, right?
yeah.
And it does go back to this question: what is my genius? Like, why do I do what I want to do, and how do I do more of it? And in order to achieve a certain goal. So maybe you want to scale, maybe you want to do more of what's great, what brings you joy. It's all about kind of how to define that. Really interesting, Linda.
Yeah, I'll just add, like, I mean, it was a huge relief for me to find out that I shouldn't be doing certain things. And I went, oh, I've
Oh,
been like pushing myself to do all this stuff. I actually shouldn't be doing that. It was a giant relief and took so much off my plate immediately knowing that. And I think that's what I find all the time
that's
is like,
so good. Yeah,
yeah, it's great.
that's really wonderful. Linda Perry, former federal criminal defense attorney turned leadership and executive strategist. If you want to learn more about her, you can visit her website, lindamperry.com. Thank you so much for coming on Great Mondays Radio and helping us understand our why.
Thank you.